I've always been a disruptor by nature. Like I've always wanted to go against the grain. I never wanted to fit in any box. So I already hated traditional education. And you're like, dude, just try it out for a bit. Pull them out of school for a couple weeks and take them on some learning adventures and see how they go. And I'm like, this dude is trying to get my kids expelled.
I remember your first question was, is that allowed?
Right.
Right.
I'm like, is this dude serious? And then I'm like, it's because he's white and I'm black. I can't do that. Like, I'm going to jail. Like, here, I couldn't unhear. Like, what if it was possible that there was a different way to have my child self-direct their own learning? What if?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the OpenEd podcast today. This is Matt Bowman, the host today. We're so excited to have one of my favorite people on our show today. His name's Darryll Stinson. You're going to get to know his story, and I've always just been an admirer of what he's accomplished in his life. So buckle up, stay tuned, listen in, and you're going to enjoy the journey with me. So, Darryll, welcome to the OpenEd podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, bro. I'm so excited to get into it with you today.
It's great to see you again. So we're going to start with your childhood. And I just want to hear kind of where you grew up, what was schooling like, what was learning viewed as, kind of the contrast between the two, what motivated you in schooling, and then take us through kind of childhood into high school. And then we'll stop there. And then I want to hear your college decision tree, like how you chose and how athletics fit in, and we'll go to that point. So
Easy.
Darryll, tell us.
Nah, cool, man. Yeah, I'm originally from Jackson, Michigan, so home of Tony Dungy for all the sports fans out there. About an hour west of Detroit, hour south of Michigan State. Man, for me, my mom was a junior, senior. She's in between junior and senior year. When she had me, my father was a freshman in college. They had just lost my brother before me a few days after he was born, and so like I was sort of like the child that was like the makeup for the one that they were grieving. And so my mom really clung. She was really overprotective of me. I had some of the same health complications that he died from and early on. So lots of real severe asthma, pneumonia. And my mom was really frightened by that. My dad was chasing the dream in college and trying to, make it to the NFL. He's a really good athlete as well, just like I was. I got it from him. It runs in our family. And mom was just trying to make it. She actually ended up going to school for a little bit, trying to like work out, being a mom, trying to still keep this guy around to be around his son, and then trying to like figure out how to take care of me. And she just couldn't keep up with it. So she, ultimately dropped out of school, even though she was like really smart. I was like a engineer in school to be one. And, had to take care of me. And was really scared that since my father was like in college chasing the dream that and not like as active in my life, that I would be like soft or like lack the presence of a real father. So she was real hard on me. And kind of the old way of, parenting where she used to spank me a lot. And, anytime I would want to like cry or talk back, she just threatened me or hit me in the mouth and say, "You better stop crying, or boy, I gave you something to cry about." And it just sort of created this thing in me where like I thought like my emotions, my who I was authentically was not okay. I wasn't supposed to be emotional in the ways that I was. Um, and it wasn't just her; it was my community that didn't respect it. It was growing up in low income in the streets, basically. It wasn't cool to be an emotional dude and a creative, even though that's who I was at my core. And yeah, I know we're talking to a lot of parents that are listening to this. I say always ask questions to your child about what they're going through, and you know, ask more than once. Because sometimes the first answer that kids learn, we learn our parents and we learn how to tell them what they need to hear or enough just to check their box of the check-in. And I sort of played that system with my mom, and it was a very dangerous system that we were playing because she was living with the illusion that I was fine, and I was building internal hatred for myself. because I wasn't being who I was meant to be in the world. I was being what other people sort of liked, loved, and accepted. So I actually changed everything about myself to fit in with other people. I went from being an all A student who was on this trajectory to be, probably summa cum laude, to skipping school, selling drugs, living the wrong lifestyle, all because I wanted to fit in with this, essentially this group of Black students who were teasing me for talking white. And sports was the thing that enabled me to not have to like deal with that emotional insecurity, because people didn't care if I was going to the basement party with the Black people or the bonfires with the whites. All they cared about is that I was, playing against a lot of soon to be NFL and NBA athletes. So I fell in love with what that was doing for my ego, and how that was causing people to give the illusion of love towards me, while meanwhile developing a deep insecurity, not knowing who loved me for me and who loved me for what they could get from me. So I was just conflicted inside. And because of the way that I was raised, both by my mother and my community, I didn't know how to express that I was even struggling and needed help. So we say we're going through it, ask for help. I didn't have the tools internally to access my emotion. And I told myself somehow I wasn't an emotional person. Now, this was the guy who was called a crybaby when he was younger, but because of the suppression and identity shifting, I then became a person who didn't believe he was emotional and couldn't access emotion at all because I had suppressed my ability to feel it for so long, both with busyness and with drugs. And so, long story short, I ended up getting hurt after going to Central Michigan on a full ride scholarship to play football, and was supposed to be one of the next greatest athletes to come out of the state of Michigan. Many people know I played with like Antonio Brown, Eric Fisher, Draymond Green came out of my state for basketball. He was number one, I was number three. So high level athlete, supposed to be the next thing, got injured, actually played after back surgery for 2 years because of opioids and drug addiction and nerve killings and epidural shots in my back. And everything changed when they kicked me off the team because my opioid abuse was thinning my blood to the point where every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed.
Really?
And the coaches kicked me off because they knew that clearly it wasn't allergies like I was telling them it was. And I was forced to face all that emotion that I had suppressed, that I truly didn't know who I was outside of sports. And I didn't know if people liked me for me or if they just liked me for sports, because I wasn't showing them me. And at this point, this had been going on from seventh grade till college, my junior year in college. And so I didn't even know me. I didn't know my authentic laugh. I didn't know my voice. I didn't know who I was on the inside. And so, long story short, I ended up in the psychiatric unit from multiple suicide attempts and, a very low, dark wrestle with depression. I found faith there. Two people came and witnessed to me about Christ, and I put my faith in Christ in the psychiatric unit. It gave me hope. It gave me purpose. It gave me a belief that I was here for a reason. And then I found out about self-care. I did my first journal entry, saw my first counselor, did my first mindfulness exercise. And I started to see that there was this whole world that I can access in here that would inform the success that I wanted and craved so bad. And so I say I had a system of success as a high level athlete. I didn't have a system of self-care. And I left there determined to follow my purpose, but not at the cost of my personal health. And so just a new paradigm for me where self-care was first instead of left to the margins of my life, and had a lot of success growing up. And I'll kind of pause there to let you chime in a bit.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Daryll, for being so raw
Yeah.
on those emotions and sharing all of that. I'd heard snips
Yeah.
and pieces of that story in our conversations before, but that's some deep emotions you've learned to manage and deal with. So
Yeah.
congratulations,
Thank
you've
you.
got to that point. That's super cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Uh, Before we move forward, because I want to get
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
where your career took you,
Yeah. Yeah.
reflect back for those parents who have kids in middle school
Yeah.
and high school
Yeah.
that are struggling with some of these things. A great advice to
Yeah.
just talk to them, ask them
Right.
questions multiple times, different ways. Reflect back on what was what was schooling? Was it anything, or was it just your means to play sports? And how do
Yeah.
you reckon, what has been the learning part of that from an
Yeah.
academic side? And
Yeah.
did that matter as much as you thought it should have back in the, like, talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a knucklehead kid, so I didn't know. I mean, I think deep inside, because I was a nerd on the inside, I knew schooling and education was important, and I desired to be all that I was here on the planet to be. But like, I was running the streets, so like, school was just the thing that was in the way of sports. It was
Yep.
just the thing that was taking a long time to learn. It was busy work. It wasn't like anything. So I just kind of knew how to get by and knew how to cheat and all of that stuff. And I graduated high school with like a 3 point like 5.6 GPA, and then
Because you
even
could perform, you knew how to jump through those hoops. Yep.
exactly. And actually, college, I did start to have very low academic performance because I was just like, it was harder to get by in college. So,
Mhm.
you actually got a couple of papers I couldn't reverse. I couldn't sweet talk the teachers. But I always tell people I had the fortune to have the right degree. But when I graduated, I didn't have the experience because I knew how to get through class, but class wasn't getting through me.
Mm. Well
So
said.
I was fortunate to one of my first real job outside of college was to work for the university. I actually got a paid internship as a senior working for my alma mater in the communications department. And as a university employee, once they hired me in, I had the benefit to take classes for free. So, as a graduate student, I actually went back and took undergraduate courses. And some of those core communication classes, public speaking 350, our introduction to public speaking, was one of the first courses I retook as a
Wow.
graduate student. One of the best decisions I've ever made. I had a professor, Adam Barragato, shout out to him, who saw my potential, my trajectory, and took me under his tutelage, made me a teacher's assistant immediately. Even though I couldn't even put two sentences together, I was coming off of a, suicide attempt. So I was still deeply insecure. And, I had concussions from sports and ADHD and all these things. So I was a terrible communicator, but I had a story to share. And so he helped me to learn the craft and helped me to learn about being myself as a communicator, and then help me also to become better at teaching others how to do the same. So, education, once I, awakened, if you will, became extremely important. And I that wasn't the only class I went back and retook.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
great point. We often say choose your why or know your why. And
Mhm.
learning needs to start with the why, especially as you get older into the college age years.
Right.
If you don't know why you're studying something or learning something, it just doesn't stick. But you had your why. You wanted to go back to undergrad classes that you were choosing. You weren't being compelled to take
Mhm.
those. You wanted to take those. And just that effort of wanting
Yeah.
ignites learning in a way that a compulsory program never does.
Exactly. Exactly. Totally, man. So you get that. Now I will say for people, and I teach, I worked with a lot of students in higher ed as well and mentored a lot of students over the course of the year, spoke at a lot of high schools and colleges as a speaker. But this whole conversation around am I living my dream or my parents' dream for me is a really big conversation. And it is challenging when parents sometimes have a limited view of who they think their kid is, because sometimes the kid doesn't even feel safe to be fully expressed in the home, and unbeknownst to the parents, they don't know, but you can always tell when your kids feel more free around their friends than they do around you. You might not know what else is in their heart to do, because they're not like, being all of who they are around you. And so I would find myself a lot as, a faculty staff member on campus, and even as, my church was on a college campus. So we did a lot of mentorship of students in college, and everyone trying to find their career path. And I just think that we need to do more due diligence as parents of really helping our kids to discover their dream, work situation in life and how they want to spend, their talents. And And so, I would just double click there and just say, for anybody in that phase with people, just ask more discovery questions. I wish I had parents that would have asked me more questions and didn't assume just because I said I wanted to be a professional athlete that was everything in my heart to do.
Interesting.
And I wish they knew me more holistically. And sometimes when you got a kid who's really good at something, you're like, but you're great at it, but you're great at math, but you're great at
Mhm.
sports. And it's like, yeah, but I would be great at something else if I developed it,
Right.
And so just be more curious instead of prescriptive. Um,
Oh, I love that. And also,
yeah.
just to add to what you were saying, uh, chapter in our book that we just published is parents, don't don't let your reputation get in the way of your kids, because
Mm,
sometimes it's so easy to
come
have the
on.
parent reputation drive
Yes.
what you are allowing your children to do and learn. And you just got
Yes.
to get out of that. You got to let the child lead and do and become, instead, and give up your, oh, I get to be able to say this at a family union or at the church setting or
Mm,
whatever. Sometimes that reputation of the parent is the biggest stumbling block for a
uh,
child to become creative.
right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point.
Yeah.
100%. Hmm.
Well, good. So you were working at the college, then what?
Yeah.
What was your next job after that?
So then did really well there, won 2 awards in higher education for marketing and branding as part of that team, and took that success and took a leap of faith and became a speaker, felt the calling to do so. And I started in marketing consultant and basically ran that play for about 7 years, where I was a marketing consultant by day. And excuse me, I was a more like a volunteer pastor by day, marketing consultant by night. Marketing consulting just paid better, so that's why I
Right.
say by day, because it paid the bills. Pastor paid nothing. And so I was doing that for 7 years, man. Lots of teaching, preaching, discipleship in churches, primarily a local church, but obviously some guest appearances here and there, and then a ton of like marketing consulting training, a handful of like athletic teams that wanted me to come to
Yep.
be like motivational speaker. And I just kept hiring coaches, getting better, getting better, getting out there, getting better, getting out there. Cause I was just so committed to changing as many lives as possible. Cause I had survived suicide. So I just was like, man, I want to save as many people as I can. And then I sort of, I had always trained speakers to some degree, but it wasn't until like after my TED talk came out, and it did 2.1 million views in a year and a half. And I was on tour doing all these stages in the spirit of changing the world that this is embarrassing to admit, but I realized that my story alone wasn't going to change the world. I
As
know that,
good as it is.
everyone's like, no, does Sherlock, like that was your epiphany in this story. But I mean, when you watch people pull out a sandwich bag of pills that they were getting ready to overdose on that night, but they came to hear you because they saw your banner or the speaker when they were on campus. And when you've got drones of people when I'm doing churches coming and putting their faith in Christ because of this moving testimony, like you think you're going to change the world, right? And so like it just realized that like, man, I'm doing everything and there's still this. I just ripped it. I mean, God just used me. It was astonishing. I poured my heart out. Like everyone was in awe of what just happened. But there's this like dude in the back with his arms crossed with glasses on. And I did everything that I could to reach this person. And then I realized like, oh, okay, I'm just not his cup of tea.
Right.
Or he doesn't need encouragement. He needs training, like, or whatever that was. And it was like, oh, this moment where I like, it's only going to change. The world is only going to change when I help other people to articulate their genius, to share their story with other people. And when we all do that, because I believe all of our world's problems are locked into a person. Every problem that exists is because some person is unwilling to share their solution to that problem. And if they are sharing it, they're sharing it in a small level instead of a big level. They're hoarding it instead of sharing it with as many people as possible. Because I believe that God locks solutions inside of people. And so Um, man, I started to really pour into other communicators so that they can get their messages out there. And that's where you and I met.
Yeah. That's
I
how
met,
you amplify that
yes,
impact.
exactly, exactly, to get them to share. And what I learned is when you speak in congruence with who you are while you're giving speeches, God is working on you.
Great
Because
point.
everything you teach, you have to ingest first. So it becomes one of the greatest forms of personal development. Because if I'm going to teach people to be creative, innovative, forward thinking, have better mental health, grow their business, whatever the thing is, then I got to then practice what I preach, and it
Yeah.
makes me accountable to my own transformation. And so I do a lot of transformation work and personal development because you can't separate what you say with your lips from how you're living your life. And that's a big part of what I help
That is
people
so
with.
true.
Yeah.
Well said, Daryl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Again, listeners, we're getting gold nuggets from an expert here. Thank you, Daryl.
No problem.
Let's continue down a personal path.
Yeah.
Your family. Tell us a little
Yes.
about what you can about your wife and kids.
Yeah, totally, man. So, met my wife when I was a freshman in college. It's not a pretty story. It wasn't like I saw her across the room and knew she was my wife. In fact, I was dating somebody else. She was doing her thing, and it was like not a good experience. We kind of messed around in college a bit and went our separate ways. And then, when we both like gave our hearts to Christ, we ended up attending the same church and started
Where were you
doing
living then?
we was in Mount Pleasant, Michigan still. I was
Okay.
still, yeah, still doing my thing. I was working for the university and all that.
Okay.
And we started doing Bible studies, like trying to keep it together, hold it till marriage, as Christians. And one time we were supposed to go to the library to have Bible study. And she says, we should just do it at your place. And I tell people that Bible study turned into body study you know so we had a baby after that. And I have three daughters, one son. My daughters are 11, 8, 6, and my son is 2. And we have one in the oven right
Oh, you
now.
do?
I do. We got one
I
in
did
the
not know
oven
that.
right now. So
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. So baby number 5 is on the way. We're not having more. We wouldn't have had this one if I didn't reschedule my surgery. But man, 3 girls, a boy, and another mystery child on the way. I can tell you vulnerably for this audience, I know this probably serves some people that like it was really challenging for me to be a parent in the beginning. I told you about my father. He did end up coming in my life, or more actively around 3, and then a little bit more around 5, and then he was, pretty much joint custody from there on up. But I was always like little brother to him more than son,
Okay.
because he didn't have his father was like the most disconnected father you could ever imagine. Like he, you know, never mentored, never taught, never did any of that stuff dads do. He was just kind of just around. And then my mom and dad were never together, so I didn't grow up with this family unit. My mom moved to Detroit from Jackson, Michigan, when I went to high school, and so there's a big part of that where mom was, in Detroit, and I'm just growing up with dad and Jackson and doing my own thing.
Mm.
So I didn't have a good model for how to be a father, or a husband. I always tell people that like we didn't have a formal dining room growing up. We used to just eat kind of standing up. And so I ate like that for the first couple years of our marriage. Like my wife would make sit down dinner, and I wouldn't be standing up, and I scarf it down, and she'd like be ready to say prayer, and I had no idea why she's taking so long to eat.
Wow.
And it took
Interesting.
it took me a long time to rewire my nervous system to where I felt normal sitting down at the dinner table just having connected family meal. Um on top of that, parent wise, like it was very much like physically present but emotionally absent parenting. And so it was challenging for me to connect on an emotional level with my kids. I always felt like they had joy that I didn't had. I had to grow up real fast. My mom had 2 younger sisters by another man, and so I was often, babysitting a lot growing up. So, you know, my ability to just like play and giggle and board games was very low with my children. My attention span for that stuff was very short. And you add that on top of the fact that I was a suicide survivor and living with this urgency of life. So it was very hard for me just to be like, oh, I just spent this time playing a video game for an hour instead of like doing a webinar and changing someone's life.
Interesting.
So the parenting journey was extremely hard for me. And if I'm honest, it still is one of my biggest insecurities. Um, and you and I met at a time where I've always been a disruptor by nature. Like I've always wanted to go against the grain. I never wanted to fit in any box. So I already hated traditional education. And especially when I learned how to communicate and actually like shift and transform behavior. I hated how things were being taught because they were not transformative, and they were just, it was like the slowest way to learn information ever. I already was like, I wish I could find a different way for my
Nice.
kids. And so then I met you and I'm like, wait, what? Like people are like doing this. And then I'll never forget our conversation we had. And you're like, dude, just try it out for a bit. You don't have to make a fork in the road decision right now, man. Just pull them out of school for a couple weeks and take them on some learning adventures and see how they go. And I'm like, this dude is trying to get my kids expelled.
I remember your first question was, is that allowed?
Right.
Right.
I'm like, is this dude serious? And then I'm like, it's because he's white and I'm black. I can't do that. Like, I'm going to jail. Like, I don't know what's going on. And it just, I'm telling you, like, we talk about paradigms, right? Like, I just I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was like, it's a scam. It's only because whatever. Like, and so, but it sat with me and I couldn't unhear it. And so, like, you and I
Good
had
way to
that
say that.
yeah, I couldn't unhear. I couldn't unhear. Like, what if it was possible that there was a different way to have my child self-direct their own learning? Like, what if there was a different way to do it that wasn't career suicide or sabotage
Wasn't
or
closing doors. Yeah.
it wasn't closing doors or shutting down opportunity or ruining a child's future. It was actually one of the most powerful, empowering things we could do. What if? And I couldn't unhear that question. And so, long story short, I think we just ended up trying and doing that. I think, well, what it was is we took the summer, and we said, okay, let's pretend
Right.
that we're running at home education during the summer to know if we want to send them to school or not for the year. That's kind of what we were making. And the kids were going wild, by the way. Like they wanted to be in school. My oldest two wanted to be in school. My youngest one could care less. But the oldest two really wanted the social interaction, the schedule they were used to, the friends that they were around. So they did not want to be missing out on anything. And it was challenging because, again, I was like, they're kids, right? They don't know what they don't know. They might hate me now and love me later for this tough choice that I made. So I'm like, I owe it to them to just be like, I'm not going to let a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old tell me what to do. And I'm like, all right, we're going to run this play and we're going to do summer school. So we did it. It was fun. We took trips. We went across the country. We saw the Grand Canyon and loved it. It was like, we're learning so much more stuff. Our kids are way smarter. They would listen to me do sales calls in the car. Right, they're ready to run businesses now. Like this is the dream. And they did not want to keep it the dream. They wanted to go back to school. So I was like, okay, Matt told me about this. It's fine. Let them do what they want to do. It's self-directed. It's not forced. All right, cool. So then,
and especially, let me just make a point here for our listeners. We never criticize the choice to send your child to the boundary district school. Right. If that's the choice you're making, kudos. We applaud that. Just make that a choice instead of a default.
Yes.
It's my only option.
Yes. 100%. So they chose to go back. But here's what happened. The law of exposure. The mind once stretched never returns back to its original capacity.
Wow, well said.
So now they're at school but they notice the rigidity. Now they're
The
at school,
flexibility.
but they miss the adventure. Now they see dad's going to Colorado and they want to go, but they can't go because they got choir. you know? And then they're like, oh, and I'm like, well, you can just come.
It's your choice.
Hey, my friend Matt. My friend Matt said we can do whatever we want. Just send him a note. And we did, bro. We pulled
Did
him
you?
out. We took him on some of my travel trips. We, took longer extended vacations. We broke the system. We had high levels of anxiety of thinking we were foolish. We were going to get our kids kicked out. We also were kind of worried about the social perception that, like, oh, they can just do whatever they want and we're in the matrix. So, that sucks. What are you doing? Going on an adventure while you stay in school, And it's like we felt bad about that I felt like our kids were like kind of becoming better than a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
I know it's a weird dynamic. It's still one of my concerns, to be honest with you. Um, but
Why do Daryl's kids get to do that?
why? What?
Yep.
Wait, because they missed. It was more than, I think it was like over 100 days of school or something crazy. It was like they missed like half of school, like, and still had good grades, and still were like student council leaders somehow, and still it worked out perfectly fine because they'd be dinking around half the time in school anyways, and you could just catch up. And now my kids, now I got the entrepreneur bug. Now my daughter starts a new business every 90 days
Nice.
and just burns our money in the ground. But they're expressed, they're learning, and they see that they have a say in their future. And so, currently we're running that play right now, and we're still like hybrid, model
Yep.
where, there's a lot of self-directed learning at home and experience, which a lot is just job shadowing us and
Yep.
being exposed. And then they're in school enrolled and, doing all the normal things all the other children do.
Oh, Daryl, that
Yeah.
summary is priceless. That is
Yeah.
such a great
Uh,
way to capture that mix, that
uh,
hybrid, that
yeah.
people don't know what to call it. We call it
Uh,
open education, which
yeah.
is just tapping into all the resources available,
Yeah.
merging those with your child's interests,
Yeah.
and wrapping around the resources you can find. Like you're
Yeah.
doing exactly what we
Yeah.
advocate, Daryl, that parents do.
Yeah.
And it's still not easy. It's messy.
Mm,
We want to make sure parents grant themselves permission to be messy and know that it's still in the benefit of your
mhm,
children. You're
mhm.
teaching them principles of taking control and ownership of their own life, their own
Yes.
education, their own learning. Those are skills and values that you're passing on that are infinitely more important. So
Yes.
that's just
Mm.
so awesome. And tell us about your wife's experience with that, because a lot of dads and moms have these conversations back and forth of, oh, but you're just off working and I've got to, deal with the hybrid schedule. And
Yeah.
like talk about that negotiation, because we talk a lot about family needs need to be
Mhm.
also identified and can't be ignored. There are family needs that need to be mixed in with education design. So tell us about her thoughts and perceptions and experience.
Totally. So my wife actually has her master's degree in science administration. I just have a bachelor's. I do actually want to get my master's for whatever reason. Like I want to get, I would love to have my PhD, to be honest with you. Um, but it's weird because I'm so non-traditional, but I want it for other reasons.
Right.
Um,
You have a why. That's
yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah. But my wife is like, my point is, number one, so she has her master's degree. Her parents are all like traditional. They're like, don't break the box. Like that's like their MO as a family. Like they have for decades, every holiday ate dinner at 2 o'clock. Like just running the same play forever. Like dinner is not even at 2, bro. I thought somebody over the course of the last 40 years would have been like, maybe we should try 5 dinner to
Right.
just, but no, 2 o'clock. So, anyways,
so she's had to first,
yeah.
face that.
Well, yes, and one of the people I love her family, and one of the people we both respect the most out of that side of the family is her grandma. Her grandma was the assistant to a dean of a university, or the president of the university, assistant to the president of the university for like her entire career as tenure. And so I say all that to say, like, the thought of pulling our children out of school. I mean, you would have thought we were switching religions.
Right.
And doesn't it feel like that sometimes when we think about pulling our kids and doing something different than what, culture says is acceptable? We feel like, we're changing religions here. Like we're violating sacred, we're cows. It feels vulnerable and exposed and scary. So for her, it was a lot. She was just like, because she didn't meet you. She just knew, I always talk to people and say everybody's amazing, right? So I'm like, oh, I met this guy, my tech high at the time, right? And
Right.
he's amazing. And he said we pull our kids out of school. And she's like, so I'm like, bro, you're gonna have to help me with this conversation. so I'm like, send me a podcast, some
Right.
resources, explain this to her. So you got on a call with us.
Yeah.
It did help that I was coaching you on your TED talk
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
Just helped her to start to see like, hey, this is not an unwise decision. Like this is just an option. Let's just look at it as an option.
Yes.
And so I think that was helpful to go from like, okay, like I'm not forcing you to do this right now. It isn't as scary as you think. Let's get you in the mindset of possibility and thinking of it as an option.
Yep. That's
And
exactly right.
so, yeah, so that was really helpful for her journey. And then from there, I mean, that experiment was helpful too. To be able to have that summer with our kids where we could see the benefit of alternative education and supplemental education and a different way of educating, and then into their own like lack of fulfillment when they went back into the belly of the beast. So after we tried it for that summer, I think she was on the other side. I think she flipped and changed and saw it, and she was more like, man, now I feel bad. Like now I feel like I'm sending them into something that's less good for them.
Right.
So it's a big
That's
change
a
for
tough
her in terms
emotion
of
too,
perception.
right?
Oh, it is. Oh, it's a big thing. Like, am I now like, again, I had to ask myself the question. No, they want to go, but now am I doing the thing where like it's clearly better, and I'm like letting them choose their
Have a
life, and
voice.
yeah, and now it's like I'm making a decision that's not the best for them as a father. Is that is a worry or a concern that I had, not a truth that I was facing, but a worry or a concern that I had. So, we're still navigating that, man. There's
Right.
part of us that still feels like that, not just because of the education, but if I can be honest with you, the food is terrible.
Interesting.
And there's a whole level of what I'm learning about healthy eating and, what we're putting in our food. That's just like, I don't even want them to, stay after school for practice and eat processed food, that, uh, doesn't serve them and their body well.
That's
So,
a really
yeah,
interesting whole tangent that we could go down.
yeah.
But it's just the idea that our kids are more than just students in a desk,
Mhm,
right? That
mhm.
are empty brains that need to be filled with a lecture. Like that,
Right.
there's so much more in schooling
Yeah.
in that happens around food, fitness, nutrition, knowledge, social attitudes, political, like all of that is wrapped up into what happens, and it's hard to know how to navigate that. And
Mhm.
so, very interesting that you brought up a completely different category
Yeah.
of something that matters to your family,
Mhm.
and each of your children are different and have different needs on nutrition,
Yes.
right? So yeah, I can totally see that. So, well, super interesting. Anything else on the learning journey of your wife, or how has she dealt with her family? What tools and strategies did she do to embrace that
Mhm.
difference with a
Mhm.
family that's not used to change?
Totally. All right. I know this is a podcast, but I need all the listeners to help your boy out. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell. but I don't think her parents know. I don't think they know, man. What you don't know won't hurt you, you know.
All right, sounds
So,
good. We'll
so,
just
so,
leave it at
so they.
that.
I don't think they really know. The times that we kind of tried to poke and mention, and oh, well, don't they have school? You know, it's like,
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool,
they
it's
get
all
caught up.
right, you know, because it's not worth the argument. Because here's the
Interesting.
thing. Here's the thing that I would say. I think this is important for your listeners. Sometimes your freedom reminds people of their lack thereof. And the truth is that all the feedback that we were sort of getting when we were like putting our toe in the water with like letting them know what was going on, the deep part of it, it was all a response, because if this was a better pathway, then that would remind them that, man, they could have thought of something different or a better way to parent. Or, and I think they were rubbing off on like, well, if you're doing it a different quote unquote better way, then we did a way that wasn't of highest service, and that is confronting to face that reality. So we had to learn that that's what we were dealing with, and just be like, you know, we don't want to create that tension, or, and that's not even our belief,
Yep.
but that's, you know, their
Your
interpretation of
perception.
our
Yep.
behavior. And so we just left it alone.
Yeah. No, I respect that. I really
Yeah,
do. I think it's you know, sometimes when new things are discovered in one's life, you push that on everybody because you want them all to know.
I know.
And sometimes, even what you said earlier, you could never unhear
Yep.
what you and I chatted about.
Yeah.
Sometimes people rather not hear some of that because it makes them question, makes them feel some guilt, anxiety, doubt of what they chose,
Yeah.
even though you don't want them to, because you're definitely not retro applying judgment,
Right.
but you don't want them to feel that, and so you're being
Yeah.
sensitive to that. I respect that. I'm 100%, man. That's
Yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, tell us now. Let's kind of end. We're at as we wrap up here. I want to have people hear about your leadership coaching programs. How to, like, what have you found from that? I know you're doing your own podcast. We're gonna, I hope to be on that one day.
Come on, baby.
So tell us about your leadership coaching services, as
Yeah.
well as, like, who have you had on your podcast? What are some interesting stories you've heard that others can, and then how do they find you?
Yeah, totally. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Number one, I help people to turn their message into a movement, right? And so a lot of people come to me because they're like, "Hey, I know that, you know, public speaking, storytelling is a great way to make an impact, and it's a great way to generate leads for a movement, a cause. You know, everything is a story, right? Your brand is a story. Your, you know, products that you sell is a story. Your personal identity and signature speech includes a big hero's journey of a story in it. So they, you know, a storytelling is a very valuable skill, and our ability to articulate it is something that often has to be coached and trained out of us. So, you know, old paradigm of communication training is like you learn mechanics, vocal tonality, where to stand on stage, sort of this, you know, loose framework of what to say to structure your speech this way. And then you go be a, you know, professional, polished speaker. I think, you know, that paradigm is very much fading to black. And now people want authenticity, connection, experiences, that type of thing. And so it takes a person who can help you to read the label when you're inside the bottle, right?
Mm.
So, you know, we oftentimes, you know, many people have experts curse, where what's foundational to us is revelational to other people. We have this way of explaining what we do that is like techie and geeky and you know, industry jargon, but it is not clear to someone to follow those beliefs in that path. So even some of the language you hear me describe open ed with, I'm sure y'all can take and go use, right?
Right.
Because I'm like condensing decades into days. I'm making something short and concise and potent. There's a lot of like tools that you can learn to be able to communicate in that way. But what's most important is that you are able to be sensitive and read the room. Okay, and that just has to be trained. It's hard to learn it without really like training. Like you train for a gym, you got to train to speak because there's so much of it that's just in your because we communicate all the time. Talk on the cell phone, talk to our wives. We have a lot of programming in how we say things. We never intentionally say it. Well, if I were to say it intentionally, how would I say it? If I were to say it with more passion, how would I say it? We didn't build it that way. And so we're not used to just being in that mode. And so we got to have it provoked out of us. We got to have it pulled out of us. I say, I know your authentic voice when I watch you argue. You don't got to think about how you sound. You don't got to think about if your points or your PowerPoint is matching. All you're like, I got something on my heart and I'm going to express it. You're going to hear this. And I'm like, okay. Okay. So you don't have to sound like a robot. So you don't need notes. So you don't need this. What you need is permission to say what's on your heart and mind and enough craft and skill so that you're not just emotionally vomiting on people. Okay. So anywhere, any person who has a story to share, they understand that I want to use this as a means to make an impact in the lives of other people. And I want to do it in a way that grows a movement, an organization, a cause. Man, I'm one of the best in the world at being able to help people do that. And the reason why is because it was one of my greatest areas of insecurity and weakness. I used to be so afraid to speak in front of people that I used to fake like I had to go to the bathroom so nobody would call on me and ask me to say, what's your name and your favorite animal? One of my first speeches, I wrote it out word for word, read it into a recorder, strung the headphones up through my jacket, left one headphone in to give the audience the appearance that I forgot to take my headphones out, hit play on the recording, and started to recite what the recording was saying. The problem is that I got off sync because I talk a lot faster than I read. And so I started to repeat multiple sentences. I have ADHD, PTSD, dyslexia, clinical depression, concussions from sports. So there was a whole period of time where I had to learn how to focus on mindfulness, and my counselor made me practice on focusing on one tooth at a time that I was brushing, and I couldn't think about work, couldn't think about what I was doing next, could think about nothing but the sensation of the tooth that I was brushing in order to train my mind to stop losing its train of thought. When I started to put together my early speeches, I used Robert Plucknick's emotion wheel chart to pick which emotion I was feeling because I didn't even have vocabulary for emotions. But what I had, Matt, was a calling to speak and a willingness to overcome that insecurity, to overcome that inadequacy, to overcome that lack of ability, to surrender to that calling to speak because I felt like I was living a second chance life, Matt. I still feel like I'm living a second chance life. And so I believe that if you're going to communicate, you better do it like you called. Principle number one, you got to be a thermostat and not a thermometer. You got to stop coming in there, foddering in the beginning. Thank you for bringing me out today and having me out here and taking 5 minutes to warm up before you say something worth listening to. People are giving you a portion of their lifespan. Say something worth listening to. Be a thermostat. Set the temperature. So when there's a 500 person room and 300 people show up, or there's a 500 person room and 120 people show up and it's awkward and it's a lot of space and it's quiet, don't be like, man, well, it's kind of awkward. No, come in there and set it off. Come in there and set the tone. Be a thermostat. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to start to raise their temperature to you. People are always asking me, sometimes I get event planners that are like, hey, man, can you do something engaging? And I'm like, oh God, their last speaker was boring. Right. I said, man, I can do something engaging, but I don't do engagement. I am engaging. So I'm the show. Right? I don't need PowerPoints, flickers, gimmicks, tricks, card games, tools, although I do know how to do a lot of that stuff. I don't need none of that. All I need is this conviction, because people don't take action unless they're moved emotionally. It don't matter what you say, open education, better pathway, who cares? Until they're moved emotionally, until they feel like, oh man, maybe I'm limiting the possibility by being stuck in a paradigm, until they feel that, they ain't changing their behavior. So we have to access that part in ourselves as communicator and allow ourselves to feel the depth of our message, lest we rob the audience of its possibility of execution. So vulnerability is not a tactic or a tool. It is a way of life that says, if I'm going to ask you to change, I must first go there within myself. And man, I think like we're coming into an age, Matt, where if you're not communicating like that, you're not going to get a spot, because everything else that you're going to say, I can save money and I can put it in ChatGPT and it can say it quicker, better, and more thoroughly for free, or the pro subscription. So you better have something to say that moves me. So you better have something to say that has some conviction in it. So you better have something to say that only comes from being so deeply connected to something that you pull out an angle that can only be extracted from human application, or else you're going to be out of a job and thumbing for donations.
Wow, Daryll, you have provided some insights that are beyond what I even had hoped for. So that was super, super nice,
Yeah.
impactful,
Yeah.
value oriented. Anyone listening
Yeah.
can really feel that passion you have, Daryll. And
Well,
I've always loved it. I've always been an admirer of it. So
thank you.
how do people find you?
Man, at Stinson Speaks. My last name Speaks on most of the platforms. So you can just Google my name. I'm pretty Googleable. Email Daryll at DarrylStinson.com. Just reach out any way that I can be helpful. I got a retreat coming up in August. I want you to come out if you can, but anybody that is listening to this is welcome to join. We do them once a quarter. I do a lot of networking events and out throughout Franklin and the Nashville region. And then I'm hosting our TEDx conference in the spring of 26 here. And better believe Matt Bowman's on our radar, because it is a TEDx Cool Springs Youth event. And so we'll only have about 2 adult speakers. And I just think you'd be a great addition to the lineup while we elevate these, brilliant students in our community and bring a couple of like heroes from abroad.
Love it.
I think he'd be a headliner, adult speaker that, is speaking to a very relevant topic that all the parents in the room are going to want to know about. And a lot of their kids are going to be, doing a little bit of that anyway. So I don't know, there's some alignment there, and
Yeah.
we should chat about it. So man, tap in. Maybe you'll see Matt at the TEDx conference. And if not, man, just get your message out there to the world, because our world needs it. People are hurting, they're confused, they're questioning, they're worried about their future, and they're looking for answers that many of the listeners on this podcast have within them. So I hope that they
Well, it's
share.
been a pleasure, Daryll. And
Yeah.
I've got a copy of our open education book.
Let's go. Thank you. Appreciate you.